I still remember the exact smell of my mother-in-law's kitchen the first time I walked in. Cinnamon mixed with something slightly burnt. Like she'd tried way too hard and the effort just got away from her.
That was Patricia in a nutshell, honestly.
Always trying just a little too hard. Always leaving something slightly scorched in her wake. I didn't know that back then, of course. Back then, I just thought she was warm, and I thought I was lucky. Marcus and I had been together for 2 years before he finally brought me home to meet her. And I'd spent most of those 2 years hearing about how wonderful she was. He talked about her the way some people talk about a saint. He'd tell me how she worked 2 jobs to put him through college, how she called every single Sunday without fail, how she remembered every little thing, like birthdays, favorite colors, or the name of your 3rd grade teacher. I was so eager to be loved by someone like that. My own mom was distant in the way that some mothers are. Not cruel, just kinda elsewhere. So a woman who paid that much attention felt like something I'd been waiting for my whole life. When we finally got to her house that first night, she hugged me right at the door. She pulled me tight and said, "Oh, honey, you are just exactly what I pictured." And I melted. I completely melted. I didn't ask myself what she meant by that. Exactly what she pictured. I didn't think about how a woman who manages her son's emotional world might have a very specific script in mind, and that the script isn't really about you at all. Marcus proposed 8 months later. I said yes before he even finished the sentence. It was a happy night, and I wanted so badly to belong to his family. When we told Patricia, she cried these big, real tears. She grabbed my face in both her hands and looked right at me. She said, "You are going to be so good for him." Not for us, not for each other, for him. I filed that away somewhere. Very small and very quiet. And then I just ignored it completely. Because she was crying, and I was just so happy to finally belong. I gotta be honest, that first year of marriage was genuinely good. It'd be so easy to look back now and say I should have seen it all coming. But that's just not fair to who I was back then. I was happy, and Marcus and I were building something real. Patricia came around a lot. Maybe a little too often. She'd always drop by with way more food than we needed. I told myself that's just how close families work. Marcus would light up like a kid who finally got permission to relax. Then I started noticing things. It happened so slowly, I almost talked myself out of seeing it. If Marcus and I had a tiny disagreement that morning, somehow Patricia already knew. She'd steer the conversation and offer unsolicited advice, always with her hand right on his arm. I'd catch him on the phone with her late at night sometimes. I'd walk into the kitchen for water and he'd be whispering. He'd get real quiet the second I walked in. I felt like these little pockets of time I just wasn't part of. It wasn't just in the house either. I'd see him sitting out in his car in the driveway before coming inside. Just sitting there in the dark, finishing up a call with her. He was carving out this whole separate world that didn't include me. I finally asked him about it one night. I did it gently, you know? Like you do when you're not totally sure you even have the right to ask. I just wanted to know why it felt like he was hiding. He didn't get mad. He just shut down. He got quiet in this really specific, closed-off way he had. He told me his mom had been through a lot in her life. He said she just needed to feel connected to us. I told him I understood. And intellectually, I really did. I wanted to be the supportive wife. I wanted to have compassion for whatever she'd been through. But what I didn't get yet was what connected actually meant. To Patricia, Connected meant informed. It meant she needed to know every little detail of our lives. And Marcus was more than happy to give it to her. Informed meant Patricia knew things about my marriage I'd never agreed to share. Things that were supposed to stay between a husband and wife. I wasn't just a daughter-in-law to her. I was a subject being monitored. And my husband was the one reporting back. It all came into focus around my sister's birthday. Marcus and I had a tiny argument before dinner about a desk I bought. He called me reckless with money. It wasn't a huge fight, just normal couple stuff. But 2 days later, I got a text from his sister, Renee. I always liked Renee. She texted out of nowhere to say she didn't think I was reckless with money. I just sat there staring at the screen. Patricia knew about the fight. She knew the exact words Marcus used. He hadn't just vented to his mom, he gave her a full report. And she had turned around and shared it with Renee. This wasn't just a private chat between a mother and son. It was a reporting system. And I was the subject they were studying. I didn't confront him right away. That just wasn't who I was back then. Instead, I got really quiet. I started paying close attention to everything happening in my own house. I started noticing which conversations he kept between us and which ones he repeated. I'd watch him texting from across the room, realizing our private moments were being packaged and shipped out. Then I saw the pattern with Patricia's visits. She always showed up right after we had tension. She had this radar for whenever I was feeling fragile or worn down. And she had this absolute gift for making me feel crazy. She'd validate Marcus completely while making my concerns seem like I was just being hysterical. All with that perfect, practiced smile. She was way too smart to criticize me openly. She'd look at me with so much pity and say she worried I took on too much emotionally. It sounded so sweet in the moment. But then you'd be alone later, replaying it in your head. And you'd realize she just called you unstable. She wrapped it up in a warm hug, but it was a warning shot. The year I got pregnant was the year things really cracked open. I was exhausted in my first trimester in a way I hadn't expected. Just bone tired, working full-time and trying to keep the house running. Marcus was traveling for work a lot more than usual back then. I was alone in the house most nights, just struggling to keep up. The physical toll of it all left me feeling completely drained. Patricia offered to help, and I accepted because I really needed it. She came over twice a week to cook and clean. She was attentive and present in all the ways I used to crave. I felt so guilty for every suspicious thought I had. Here was this woman folding my laundry, for heaven's sakes. I kept asking myself, what kind of person was I? I found out what kind of person I was when I lost the baby at 11 weeks. It happened on a Tuesday. Only Marcus and my best friend knew, because I just needed time to grieve privately. I told Marcus I wasn't ready to tell anyone else. I begged him for just a few days before we told his family. He held me and said, "Of course, sweetheart." I spent the next 2 days just trying to process the loss. I really thought our secret was safe. But by Thursday afternoon, a delivery arrived at the door. It was a massive arrangement of sympathy flowers from Renee. The note said she was so sorry for our loss. Patricia knew before I had even finished grieving. Something inside me just stopped. Not broke exactly, but stopped. Like a clock someone had finally reached into and held still with their hand. I knew then what had been happening for years. Marcus had never seen our marriage as a private space. His mother was the third person in our marriage, and he put her there. I wish I could say I handled it all with perfect grace. I want to tell you I sat down and had this calm, measured talk about boundaries. But the truth is, I was still physically recovering from losing our baby. The grief and the rage were just so tangled up inside me. I didn't even wait for him to come home.
I called Marcus right then, while he was at work. And I was absolutely not calm.
I was crystal clear, but man, I was furious. I laid it all out for him.
I told him exactly what I knew and how I knew it.
I told him his mom sent flowers for a baby she wasn't even supposed to know was gone. I needed him to explain to me right then what he thought our marriage actually was. On the other end of the line, there was just silence. It was that long, heavy kind of silence where you can hear someone scrambling. He didn't apologize. He didn't say he made a mistake. Finally, he spoke. He told me she had a feeling something was wrong, so she called him. And he said he just couldn't lie to her. That was his whole defense. He couldn't lie to her. That one sentence made everything snap into focus. The real relationship, the one that got his absolute loyalty, was with his mom. I was just somewhere else in the arrangement. Loved, maybe, but totally secondary. I didn't pack my bags and leave right after that call. I want to be honest about the messy middle, because it's never that simple. I stayed. I really tried to fix it. We started going to couples counseling. Marcus actually agreed to come, and he showed up twice. But even in that room, he just couldn't see the problem. He just sat there with his walls totally up. He described his relationship with his mom as just being close. He said it so casually that our therapist actually tilted her head. She started asking these pointed follow-up questions, and he just dodged all of them. Meanwhile, Patricia never acknowledged that anything was wrong. She kept showing up at our house doing her whole warm, perfect mother-in-law routine. From the outside, we probably looked like a perfectly happy family. What finally changed everything wasn't Marcus. And it wasn't Patricia either. It was a phone call from his sister, Renee. We'd stayed quietly close through all the mess. And one evening, she called me. She told me she couldn't stay quiet anymore. She'd watched her brother do this his whole life. Every relationship, he let their mother right in. She knew exactly what her mom was. And then she told me about the group chat, a private thread between Marcus, Patricia, and Renee. It had been going on for years. Renee took screenshots of everything. My phone started buzzing as the images came through. I sat alone at my kitchen counter at night, just staring at this glowing screen, reading my own marriage discussed like a case file. Patricia had been sharing things I'd said in confidence, analyzing my behavior, asking if I was unreasonable, just figuring out whether I was a good fit for him. And Marcus was just letting her do it. The thing that hurt most wasn't a direct insult. It was a message Patricia sent months ago. She wrote that I was too focused on what I wanted, and hoped Marcus remembered what was important. I scrolled down to see how my husband defended me. Instead, I saw his reply. He sent a laughing emoji, and he typed, "I always do, Mom. Don't worry. I always do." I didn't scream or throw the phone. I just sat there in the quiet, feeling the last thread of my marriage snap. I had to grieve the marriage I thought I had before I could end it. I really took my time after that night. People expect you to just pack up and storm out. But grief doesn't work on a schedule. I moved slowly, keeping the secret while I figured it out. I started talking to a lawyer quietly, on my own, learning exactly what I needed to know. I found a small apartment I could afford. and I began packing my life away. One hidden bag at a time. The morning I finally left, I made sure Marcus was already at work. I planned it that way on purpose. I just didn't want a scene, you know? I couldn't stomach another conversation where I ended up comforting him. I left a note on the kitchen counter. It was short, factual, and honestly, pretty kind. There was no point in being cruel. The truth was already heavy enough. I took my bags and drove away with the windows rolled all the way down. It was freezing out, but I didn't even care. I just needed the cold air. I needed to feel something physical and real that I actually chose. 3 days later, Patricia called me. I just stared at the screen buzzing on the table. I didn't answer it. I just let it ring until it went to voicemail. She left a voicemail that I've listened to exactly once. She went on about how blindsided she was and how she loved me like a daughter. She begged me to give Marcus another chance because he was so lost without me. There wasn't a single apology in the whole thing. Not one word of accountability. It was just the same warm, slightly scorched performance she always gave. But this time, she was playing to an empty room. The audience had finally stopped watching. I deleted the voicemail and just put the phone down. I'm in a different city now. My apartment is small, but it's very much mine. I chose every piece of furniture and every paint color. I've got all these plants on the windowsill and this great yellow chair. And the best part? Not one decision was run past anyone for approval. It's just mine. I still talk to Renee sometimes. We mostly just talk about work or books we're reading. We don't really talk about Marcus. I finally have some peace. I don't actually hate Patricia anymore. To really hate her, I'd have to believe she knew exactly what she was doing. And honestly, I just don't think she did. She loved her son in the absolute only way she knew how. It was this complete, all-consuming kind of love. She just didn't leave any room for anyone else to matter. And Marcus? I really do believe he loved me genuinely. At least with the parts of himself that weren't already occupied. I was just renting a small corner of his life. Looking back, I think we were all just trying to be enough for each other. We were playing the roles we thought we were supposed to play. It just wasn't a system that could ever hold up. What I know now is something I didn't understand back then. True belonging isn't something someone just hands to you. It's not a prize you get for being compliant. It isn't given to you through a warm hug at the door, or someone magically remembering your favorite color. Real belonging has to be built, carefully and honestly. It's built between two people who agree to keep the door shut sometimes. You gotta hold some things sacred and private, just for each other. When one person props that door open and invites their mother to read the room, you're not building a marriage anymore. You're just building a performance. And the thing about performances, they always, eventually, have to end. Nobody can hold their breath forever, right? I really hope Marcus figures that out someday. I genuinely do. But I'm no longer waiting in the audience to find out. I spend a lot of time tending to the small things now. The plants on my windowsill. It sounds trivial, I know. But when your world has been monitored for years, it's a revelation. I decide what thrives here. There's this specific kind of silence that fills my place now. At first, I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. Waiting for a passive-aggressive text to ruin the peace. But the silence just stayed. It's a comforting quiet. The only person from that life who still reaches out is Renee. She finally left that group chat. We don't sit around dissecting Marcus or Patricia. Instead, my phone just buzzes with a picture of a stray dog she saw. Whenever I see her name pop up, I don't get that awful spike of anxiety anymore. I just feel a genuine spark of connection. We talk about books or coffee shops. It's a friendship built on real respect. It's funny how you can walk away from a massive wreckage and still find one piece intact. Renee saw the reality when no one else would. She chose to stand in the truth with me. That kind of loyalty is rare. I've started cooking for myself again. Just simple lunches. I definitely don't make elaborate meals that leave the kitchen smelling like burnt cinnamon and desperation. I eat exactly what I want, without managing anyone else's expectations. Eating alone used to sound so lonely to me, but sitting here in the sun, it feels like a luxury. There's no weird subtext at my table anymore. Just the food, the warmth, and my own thoughts. I spend hours just sitting in my yellow chair, letting the day pass by. I used to feel like I was always on display, performing the role of the perfect wife. But now, the audience is gone. I can finally exhale. I still wear this same delicate silver necklace. I catch myself touching it sometimes. It's an old habit from when I needed something to ground me. I still touch it, but the anxiety's gone. It's a reminder that I survived. I don't really know what the future holds. And for the first time, I'm not trying to control it. I'm painting my own canvas now, using my own colors. And the best part? I don't have to show it to anyone. What I know now, that I didn't know when I first walked into that cinnamon-scented kitchen, is this. Belonging isn't just handed to you. It's not something you get just because someone gives you a warm hug at the door, or because they happen to remember your favorite color. Real belonging has to be built. You gotta build it carefully and honestly between two people who actually agree to keep the door shut sometimes. You have to be willing to hold some things sacred, to keep certain parts of your life private and just for each other, no matter what. Because when one person decides to prop that door wide open, when they invite their mother in to constantly read the room and take notes, you're not really building a marriage anymore at that point. You're just building a performance. You're acting out a script someone else wrote for you. And the thing about performances is, they always, eventually, have to end. The curtain has to come down sometime. You can't keep it up forever. I really do hope Marcus figures that out someday. I hope he learns how to actually be in a relationship that's just his own. I think he loved me in whatever space he had left to give. But it just wasn't a system that could ever hold us both. He's gonna have to learn that lesson on his own time. Because I'm no longer waiting in the audience to find out.